really, really proud to introduce our next guest speaker, Dee McLaughlin. Dee is a film producer and writer from St Kilda, Victoria, and has directed such films as Scavengers, The 00 Kid, Running Wild, Deadly Chase and The Second Jungle Book. In 2006 she directed The Jammed, which is about the sex trafficking industry in Victoria. Our mate Damien Richardson, he was an actor in that film and featured as the federal agent. And when I was speaking to him the other day, he just spoke so highly of Dee. I actually tried to get him here tonight and I thought he could do the intro for her, but he spoke so highly. He said it was just such a pleasure working, and that Jammed had such an incredible twist at the end, and you really need to check it out. It's an amazing documentary. It's not a documentary, it's an amazing movie. Who's seen The Sounds of Freedom? Okay, well done, thank you. So, like, seeing this opened my eyes. I knew that there was stuff going on, but the extent of it, I had no idea. $130 billion a year industry dealing with kids and sex trafficking. Who would have thought it? Honestly, who would have thought it? And people were trying to tell me 5 years ago, and I'm going, oh, I'm sure it's happening, but I'm not ready to know about that yet. I don't really want to know about it. I've got another guy. And I think this is what happens, and you just get to that point where there's a button that's pushed, and whatever that button is for the individual, and it's different for everybody, because I know it is, because I've talked to a lot of people, when that button's pushed, you can't unpush it. When you see something that's true, you can't unsee it. And then that's it, you're awake. So that's the trick, I think, that we need to find out. What is that button that's going to be pushed for that person? And I think that documentary, or what we call it, the Sounds of, the Sounds of Freedom, definitely woke up a lot of people, like, a huge amount of people. So when I looked at this, I thought, there was still the viewpoint that I was getting from people that it's happening over there. It's, it's in South America or South Africa or Mexico or America. But what's happening here? And so I called Dee, because I knew she knew, because I've always known that she's known, but I didn't want to know about it. So my button hadn't been pushed yet. So Dee founded Gumshoe News a decade ago, and she's just completed a book about child trafficking or child trading in Australia called The Child Protection Racket. And she's put together a presentation tonight. She's very generously granted her presence here tonight to share this with us. And fortunately we're having it filmed so that we can share it far and wide and hopefully wake up hundreds more people. Thanks, Dee.
Thank you very much. Freedom is freedom. Anyway, thanks, Ken. And so there's so much to cover, but I'm going to try do the crash course. And 5 years ago, I hadn't heard of this child trafficking, legalised child trafficking in Australia. The switch went on and I couldn't turn back. And from that moment, for about 4 years, I didn't have a decent night's sleep, and we're in a hell. Some people are in hell. So I decided to call it the Child Protection Racket, because they use the word protection. We're going to keep your kids protected, we're going to keep them safe, but everything they say is turned upside down. So it's like a mafia, and they extort people, and it's a complete legalised government racket. So let's move on. So we've just spoken about Sound of Freedom, and there are two layers in this child trafficking. There's this underworld child trafficking corporate, shipping kids in containers and everything. But what I'm talking about, what this book's about, it's about the government child protection racket that is allegedly legalised, that exploits and traffics Australian children. So I'm going to go through that. So if you think about, if someone steals your car, you can get so upset. If someone steals a house, burns your house down, you get upset. But it's difficult for people to imagine your child being stolen. I think the closest you can get to is speaking to a parent that's lost a child. For some of these parents that are destroyed when their children or babies are taken. So at the moment, there are about 46,000 children in out-of-home care. I couldn't find the figure for 0 to 18 because they're still under guardianship at 18, so there's more. I quickly realised it was impossible to challenge the system. The governments and the courts do not follow the law. It is so steeped in a culture of child removal. So I'm just going to mention a little bit about the law here. I've got all the child protection laws. Those are, just pages and pages of we're going to protect your children and keep them safe. But they're just two things. We've signed up to the covenants and treaties adopted by Australia, and these are the political rights. All are equal before the law, and they're entitled to the protection of the law. And then everyone has the right to liberty and security of person, and no one shall be deprived of his liberty. So I'm just putting a pin in that, and we'll come back to that later. So my journey started when I first interviewed Rachel Bourne, and she said, I think we should meet this mum, because her daughter, we think her daughter was abused by the same person that abused me. And they're 35 years apart. And we established, yes, the child identified the spot, Rachel knew the spot, special place they were taken to, and the police report was sent in. And of course, nothing's ever done. No one's ever bothered about Rachel's thing. So I learned all about this, and I read the most horrific stories. And the jam was a mild version because you couldn't actually, no one would go and see the real version. But when I learned of what was happening to Australian children now, I was not prepared. I was absolutely not prepared for the maliciousness and the grief that people go through. And when you go to the government cannot help. It's almost impossible for the government to help. So what it proved to me fairly quickly is the government is a sham. If you can't rescue a raped child on evidence, it means that they aren't governing at all, and they cannot govern. A number of advocates, we call it, it's a business. So it's a business, it's either cash for kids, you can call it unlawful abduction, that you can easily do with evidence. It's judicial kidnap, stolen by the state, children are being trafficked, they are being trafficked, and they're being traded in the out-of-home care industry. So this is nothing new, by the way, because Nancy Schaefer, a senator, Georgia senator, in 2004-2008, she spoke up and she said the child protection services have become a protective empire built on taking children and separating families. So there's a long speech. She gives a fantastic, she gave several long speeches. And so what did they do? They killed her. They shot her in the back of the head. So this is nothing new. I'm not giving you anything new, basically. But I had a bit of an epiphany one day. I woke up one morning and I go, hang on a moment. We're the experts at child stealing. We're the child stealing nation of the world. And we started off in the 1700s. And I think we were being paid to bring child convicts over. And they were just grabbed off the street in Ireland and England. and they would have been taken, you know, disadvantaged families, and there was no way they could defeat the law, which was the Transportation Act of 1777. So that started fading in 1868. Well, what happened in 1869? Oh, well, let's get the protection and management of the Aboriginal nations of Victoria. I'm just quoting the Victoria one. They started the stolen generation, stealing children, once again. And then that started to fade out. Oh, well, let's have a child migrant program, and they took kids from, it's like a resource transfer, you know, it's a resource shipped over a whole lot of disadvantaged kids. Some of them had brutal lives, you know, brought out here. And as the stolen generation started to fade, what happened? Well, they started experimenting and advertising for foster care for everybody. So the foster care system started, and I think it probably started with genuine concerns. We want to help these kids in institutions. We want to help these disadvantaged. And I do think you know, I'm slamming the government here, but I'm sure there are a lot of good people that go into it to really genuinely help kids. A lot of them leave, but it's too late. It's two sides of a coin. There might be a good side on the other side. It's just despicable. And the family law, I won't go into the family law act because, but that was just another lucrative remove and place program system. And then the child protection systems really started to gear up in the 90s, and all the laws, best protect, best interests for the child, and all that started up. But the stolen generations are far not over, because I'll refer to it later. But in 2007, 5.8 kids for every 1,000 were in out-of-home care. Or no, it's 13 years later, it's 8 per 1,000. It's a little bit more now. But I just took a grab out of the New South Wales Annual Report, 2019-20, and 2,206 children were brought into care. And it included 952 Aboriginal children. So that's 43% of all the kids out of 3.4% of the population. I've been told by Pastor Paul Robert Burton, and I've seen other posts from, what's her name, Cashman? Josephine, and Pastor Paul was following a company called Challenge, and they were going in and harvesting children in rural communities. So forget the stolen generation, it's just continuing. It shows how mental we are. I'll get to that later, but it shows how mental we are. The default for protection or safe is to remove a child. You know, there are lots of ways to protect people, and there are lots of ways to keep people safe. But people that have come to me when I started publishing articles, lawyers, good parents, you know, the point about removal is the government is proven statistically to be a very bad parent. So why would you take a child screaming and kicking from some parents? Maybe that kid's in the frying pan. Why would you put the kid in the fire? Even Nancy Schaefer said, oh, it's 6 times more dangerous. And, I mean, we know that the government is much more likely for the child to be raped, molested, neglected in care. And I'll get to that because I'm in contact with some very good foster parents. But the sad thing is that even with this case that I mentioned up front, even when we have all the evidence, there's a no return policy. You are so lucky if you can get your child back. And it's quite despicable. So when we talk about the courts, we actually now discovering that we think the courts don't have any, the children's courts, children and youth courts, don't have authority. and they rubber stamp it. I mean, I've heard a recording with a social worker, and the social worker says, we don't have to listen to the ministry. We are in control of that child. It's just that they just a rubber stamp them, and they'll do the bidding of the department. And the department is not the government. The minister doesn't even know what's going on. I mean, for 4 years I've tried to speak to one minister, and 80 phone calls, that doesn't help. And they don't care about evidence. I'll go back to the beginning. So I'm not talking about the good people that are trying to do good stuff. I'm talking about the people that are actually in it on the gravy train. And these could be police officers, social workers, supervisors, department execs. The department exec for South Australia was getting close to 800,000 a year. Psychologists, psychiatrists, the ICLs, the children's lawyers, the department's legal teams, and that's the Crown, and the magistrate and judges. And they're all in a gravy train. And so when people say, look, the system, child protection is broken, you know, the typical thing, oh, it's just broken, you know, we'll try to fix it. No. There are three options. One, they are so goddamn useless, and it is broken. Two, it's designed that way. It's designed. Three, it's designed to be broken as a cover. And that's what I think is the reality. So we're talking about taking a kid from a parent. So what happens is you can look up any of the monkey studies. Take a monkey baby off its mother, and it literally starts to die. The monkey will choose a fake mum as opposed to food. So the monkey will start to kill. You know, all the research says it's catastrophic, removing a child. This is our biology. This is what we're the human species. This is how we've got here. And now, of course, the whole plan is to screw everything up. So this is part of the agenda. But it is catastrophic. It plays havoc with the kids, and we know statistically that those kids that are removed in care are statistically at huge disadvantages. Health, life, longevity, everything, social connections. It's just a catastrophic. It's catastrophic. I know a couple of foster parents. So one foster couple gave this baby, she was only 6 months old or something. They took her in, and they were a privileged family, so they gave her everything. Lessons, swimming, dancing, anything, private school, the whole works. And they then had a daughter, and these two grew up like sisters. And then one day, 35 minutes before, 35 minutes notice, social workers arrived, and they took them. And I'll get to the garbage bag. Children weren't allowed to take any toys, no photographs, nothing. Just I think that she could take one toy, and she said, "Okay, mummy," because they said we're going for a drive. So she said, "Okay, mummy, I'll see you tomorrow." And the social worker turned around and said, "You're never coming back here." And the girl started cutting herself, and she was shipped to her home with 11 foster kids. And she went, and I think she was sold to a family. But anyway, that's a long story, and that is a speculation, that last bit. But in another case, what the social worker whispered to the foster mum, in an even worse case, she said, "You showed them love, and that's why we took them. You give them what they need, do not form a connection." So, I'm sorry, I hope I haven't triggered you.
In a way, I'm just going to have 5. Because
Yeah,
everything you're saying is right. It is true.
No, I'm sorry.
No.
Yeah.
You keep doing what
Okay.
you're doing, because
I
I
know,
believe you
I'm
teach
sure
them.
this is triggering you.
You know it.
But now I'm going to go into the nuts and bolts of the thing. So we know about child trafficking. So I'm just going to give you a little example. So you've got, these kids that are trafficked to work in cocoa plantations, and that kid's probably worth about $2,500 a year. If you say, $7 to $10 a day or whatever, but you've still got to sell the cocoa, and you've still got to house and feed the kid and everything. It's a brutal business. There's a much better way, just to have a remove and place program sanctioned by the government. So, an Australian child in care is worth about, it's difficult to know what the worth is, but it's about 80 to 150,000 a year. And if it's a special needs baby or a kid, it'll probably be worth about 350. People get on the gravy train and facilitate this kid's life. So it's a remove and replace program. And I've heard there's a $30,000 broker's fee when you take a child and place it in a home. It's all monetary, isn't it? It's a whole monetary system going down. And this is amazing because there's no sale of, you don't need to sell cocoa because the children are the merchandise. And the income comes back, it comes from the taxpayer. And if you want more income, you just grab more kids, and then you go to Parliament and say, we need to protect more kids, we're running out of budget, and they just fork out the billions. And so it is highly profitable. They say it's about, the figures differ, but it's about $7.5 to $9 billion childcare. And so if you look at 20,000 kids in a cocoa plantation, they worth probably about, 20,000 kids probably worth about 50 million in earning capacity. 20,000 kids in out-of-home care in Australia, probably about 2 billion. So there's a huge incentive to remove children. Now, I'm not saying that children should not be removed, because you probably find there were kids, there are kids, that were, I've spoken to one or two, that said, I was really pleased to get taken out of my fucked up home, drug screwed up parents, and I got a better life. So I do not dispute that. But the cases I know, those kids should never, ever have been removed. And so one has to wonder, is this jobs and growth? In 2010, there were 37 social workers per 100,000, and a decade later, there were 67. So it's an 81% increase in social workers, and over the same time, nursing dropped, apparently. So where does the money come from? The money comes from mainly from the Commonwealth, and the money goes to police, state children, youth courts, the psychologists, the psychiatrists, the legal industry, and the Attorney General's department to feed this huge machine. And some of the kids then get exploited. I tried so hard to get the states to investigate themselves. So I went to all the OPIs, the ICACs, the judicial reviews, the commissioners, the guardians. None of them had the ability to step in. And I'll give you some of their responses soon. So I went to the AFP and I said, hang on, we've got some Commonwealth crimes now. There's not, because abduction is a state crime, but child trafficking is a Commonwealth crime. And I said, this is a syndicated system, so it's child trafficking. And it's fraud upon the Commonwealth if you misappropriate those funds to remove kids and pay heaps of people. But that's gone my way, of course. And so I'm just going to talk about the elephant in the room very quickly, and that is, you probably all know about the Heffernan speech, Bill Heffernan, and he said, I'll cut to the chase, I'm sure you know about it. We decided not to revisit the issue, which is, pedophilia, because the public would lose confidence in the judiciary. It's the elephant in the room, pedophilia, because Australia is the gold medal holder at the moment. And you don't have to believe me, there's a significant study ordered by the Guardian of New South Wales. and they said Australia is the highest reported rate of child sexual abuse. So we the gold medal that false reporting is repeatedly as rare as 1 to 1.5%. So in my survey, I was desperate, I didn't know what to do, so I did a survey in 2018, and question 7 said, and it only involved people that were cases of child sexual abuse, that had lost their children in some way. So I said, who did believe your child when he or she disclosed sexual abuse? Oh, so the family members, the local psychologist or psychiatrist and everything. And you can see at the bottom, the independent child lawyer, the lawyers that represent the child, did not believe the child. 50% of them never even spoke to the child. The judges did not believe the child. Well, I don't believe it. I actually do believe they do believe the child, that they ignore. I won't go through it too much, but did the judge destroy evidence or order the evidence to be destroyed? Yes. So there's a Latin maxim, you destroy evidence, well, maybe you're the guilty party. They had no regard for children. So what I'm getting to the point here, I go back to the rights of the children. Do they have equity in law? No, they do not. They do not have an ounce of equity in law. So these people were in family court and they spent a ton of money in family court. ICLs and social workers falsified documents, etc. And were the people being authentic there were 77 people who answered the survey, were they being authentic in their answers? So I did a sort of kind of a trick question at the end. I said, if you had one choice, what outcome would you vote for? Would you want financial compensation, a royal commission, or criminal investigations and prosecutions? So most people said, we just want people punished, prosecuted. 3%, I think it's 2 people or something, said, yeah, we want some compensation. So the police protocol, I basically proved to the South Australian Police that their protocol is to conceal child sexual abuse. And I proved this in the case study. I did a video on a case study. I called it case study number 001. And I won't go into it in detail, but basically, abuse had been established. Then a police officer interviewed the child, concealed the evidence of rape. The mum was awarded sole custody. So then, 6 weeks later, the child was injured, and the department stepped in to do a backdoor custody search. But what happened was, because the police officer lied, they removed the child. And I'll just give you an idea of the craziness and how low on the totem pole. The kids aren't even on the totem pole. So this kid had made about 12 notifications through various people, her psychologist, police, doctors, all these things over 4 years. Out of desperation, she went to the teacher on her own accord and told the teacher all sorts of things, which I won't describe. They're disturbing. And so this is a little bit like 3 people walked into a bar. Police officer, the principal, and the teacher. So the police officer concealed the abuse. The teacher listened to the child and made the report. And the principal sent the child back with the abuser. So what happened? The police officer got promoted. The teacher got, I saw a letter in the education department. The teacher got time off and was offered counselling. So what happened to the child? The child was punished, removed from her mother. So it's like, when you try to help these people, it's absolutely, it's mental. The consequences of concealing abuse, and I go back to no one can help. Not a single person in government can help. And you'll be lucky if they can. every now and then I hear a story and they pulled it off. And, that's usually when you've got a good social worker, a good carer, and a good police officer, and they're desperately fighting their own system to do the right thing. So what I found was the whole government is past the parcel. All these parents are familiar with that. The complaints go around in circles, and they say, "Oh, you got to, write to the AG, write to the PM, right?" So they just pass the buck. But I'll just give you some idea of the reply. So I complained for 2 years about this police officer. In her own affidavit, she admits she lied. Yes, I wrote nil disclosures. And in the affidavit is the disclosures, the most horrific disclosures. I mean, it's many. They're so confident of not being prosecuted. Anyway, and so they know they were caught out. So this is the internal investigation services, because the Fox has to investigate the hen house. And they say the actions of the police officer did not warrant any disciplinary action. So you just can't compete with bullshit on this kind of level. And I wrote to the minister and gave, this is just one example. I gave all the factual data, evidence of physical abuse, photographs of physical abuse, the transcripts, the police lies, the whole thing, and 12 notifications, please help this child. They write back. No, there is nothing to look here. We've investigated, there's nothing to see. But if, and then the paragraph, if you or any other person is aware of a child in immediate danger, or you want to report reasonable suspicion that the child is being abused, please find the child abuse report.
Oh my God.
It's like, are you mental? You belong in an asylum if you cannot see the logic of your own insanity. So, I'll quickly go through the laundry list because it's important to understand that it's a system as you throw as much shit on the fan as possible and it sprays out. And so they want to take your child. So they've got a laundry list as long as your arm. And they've got psychiatrists that will sign up to anything. I mean, it's unbelievable. Anyway, the Chinese whisper reports, that means that very simply the first report will be, the parents are doing okay, or the mother's okay, but, it's a little but. And then the next report might be an internal report, and then they'll define what the but is about. Then the third report will be a psychiatrist that gets all the reports. And the parents or the mother has not seen the but report because it was internal. So then the psychiatrist, they meet the psychiatrist, and the psychiatrist goes, but, and he puts 2 or 3 buts on it. And of course there's the mental health disorders, there's a long list. The mother coached the child, and that turns into, the mother didn't really coach the child, the mother influenced the child. And the parents could be fixated, then you get parent alienation syndrome, then there's emotional abuse. Now, there's no way to prove legally in court there was emotional abuse. There's no standing. Evidence and stuff don't count. They can just buy an opinion. So if you prove, no, you never abused your child, emotionally abused your child, because emotional abuse is terrorizing, denying, bullying, all that stuff. You've got a loving mother now. Then they go, okay, you've got emotional incapacity to care for the child. So everything's got a twist to it. A lot of the parents I'm dealing with are obstructive because they challenge, they want the kids back, so they're obstructive. They're unstable, the really sick one, they're dependent on the child emotionally. So you say, oh no, you can't give the child back. The mother's codependent on the child emotionally. It's not healthy. And it's like, well, what's a mother? Drugs, alcohol, anything to do with unworthy past. Then you get strange things like, Munchausen syndrome, mum that's been accused of factitious disorder imposed on another. She's got medical certificates. It's just outrageous. And the one mum, they didn't like that she was non-compliant. And they grabbed her kid and they diagnosed her with differential schizophrenia in a 20-minute consult. It was actually 40 minutes, but a 20-minute consult. So the doctor said, look, just take the lazapine so you can get your child back. And so I listened to the phone call between the social worker saying, well, are you not interested in the treatment? She said, no, I haven't got schizophrenia. Oh, but we suspect that it might be. So why aren't you taking your treatment? Because suicide is one of the side effects. It was so mental. They're not getting the child back. And she's putting up a good fight. Anyway, taking medication, and then there's the story about Dr. JB, the mum that I was helping for like 4 years. She won in court hands over every time. So they brought the same psychiatrist that had passed her previously to come in and say, she's delusional. He'd seen something this morning. I retract my 2 assessments. So without a further assessment, he's just retracted his past assessments because he's seen a scribbled note. And the scribbled note was completely bogus because it was an entry note. And the exit note said that the mother suffers anxiety. And so the mum, he was saying in court for like 6-7 hours that she was delusional, she had a delusional disorder. And the mum slowly broke him down. And then as he's broken and admits that, yeah, maybe he's got it wrong, the magistrate intervenes and starts talking about medication. What are we going to medicate the mother? So she didn't return after tea. She phoned me up and she said, I can't go. They're going to order forced medication. And so they went back and they had the last hour in court. And the psychiatrist said, oh, no, she hasn't got delusional disorder. I punished her for 5 hours. She hasn't got delusional disorder. And yet the judgment came out delusional disorder. And they were stupid enough to forget that they were on transcript. It's just, you can't even describe the thing. So it's basically, it's a version of the Salem witch trials. Whatever you do, you're damned. If you do, like, if she admits, if she says, okay, I'll take the treatment so I can get my child back, then in court, they'll say, Your Honour, she's on schizophrenia medication, but we think she's not quite ready. If she doesn't accept the treatment, Your Honour, she's a belligerent, she refuses treatment, you can't give the child to a dangerous mother. You're going to drown or get burnt, whichever way. And so the children's courts are nothing but star chambers, and they've set parents to life in purgatory. So what I did is I mapped out just this one case of this police officer that lied. After her lie, and these are conservative figures, I'm extremely conservative. I think it could be 3 times as much, but I've been conservative. After the police officer lied, this is how much money the taxpayer was misappropriated, 1.7 million. And all these people got paid. And, the crowd solicitor, 30,000 retainer a month. And none of them, want to be off the gravy train. So they all get money. And in that case of the police officer, I sent out a document and proved these laws, all these laws were broken, naming everybody. We took one social worker to falsifying statements, and after a year in court, and then the magistrate suggested to the Crown that, what about witness immunity? You can't murder someone and then say, oh, I witnessed the murder. Can I have immunity because I witnessed me killing the person? So all those are absolutely proven, but the police officer is promoted. So we live in an upside down world, and that's where I go to, that actually we're on the, we all know about the spiritual war and the whole concept, but they're on a different bandwidth, that actually their minds are switched off, they're in a demonic realm, or whatever it may be, it doesn't matter, they're on a different bandwidth. They cannot, you walk into a room and they cannot see the crime. It's absolutely gobsmacking. And I've spoken about the garbage bag children, I've spoken about the floppy yard. In the book I've got a whole lot of cases, and where I believe they were weaponizing, using sound weapons on the mum to disable her. And she came out, thankfully I was quick on the recorder, and I'd called her before visitation, and she called me after, and she sounded like a drunken sailor. And that's the drunken sailor. She sounded like a drunken sailor. She said, oh my God, I thought I was fucking there. Yes, it's all fucked up. I just blacked out, oh, whatever. And she said, they're going to write the sheriff's report. And I had this all on recording. And after 10 minutes, she was back to normal. Speech improved, back to normal, back to her old self, on the ball. And lo and behold, at the next court case, Your Honour, the mother arrived at visitation on the 25th, drunk or on drugs, Your Honour. And I'd already prepared a statement because we'd seen the thing the day before. And the mum said, Your Honour, I've got a police statement here. I've got a statement signed. And I didn't put in the electronic weapons, I just said I witnessed her getting back to normal, probably anxiety. And that was the last you heard of it. So that, I can't even imagine what they're up to. It's just an endless chain of destruction. And the worst part is society's kept in the dark. You're not allowed to speak about any of these cases. A mum sent me a photograph the other day. She's not allowed to see a child, and that's a whole story itself. But it was a Facebook post of the students at school winning the science competition, and the school had pasted a smiley face over her daughter, so she couldn't see her daughter. So it's on another level. And so then I go back to children are not equal before the law. They're not protected by the law. And children do not have the right to liberty and security of person in Australia. They do not. They absolutely do not. And thousands of children have been deprived of their liberty. For absolutely sure. And we just don't know the figures because it's all secret. We don't know. I mean, I've heard of stories that are so bad that we can't even go there, but we don't know the figures. All we know is it is an absolute money machine, osmosis disaster that is condoned by everyone in government. And I think they're told, like Nancy Schaefer, maybe they're showing a picture of Nancy Schaefer's the back of her head or something. Do not interfere. And so it comes up to us to actually say, enough's enough. You can't help a child. What are you doing to the boys? You're not helping the Australian Aboriginal children. You know, you're stealing them. And so I think this is one of the keys that if we understand how to compete with this business, then a lot of other businesses will unfold. So that's the end of that.